Longtime and dear friend, Ronnie Casey, also here from California, would like to speak about his experiences with her.
December 17th, 1997. Dearest Ronald, oh, how I love thee. When I think of who makes me happy, I always think of you. You are my ray of sunshine, my full moon on a starlit night. I am so glad that we have had the chance to live together. I know no matter how far we are apart, we will always love each other. I truly admire your strength. I hope I have been a part of your growth into a strong, beautiful young man. You are my brother, and there is nothing I wouldn't do for you. You are so special to me and mean so much to me. If there is ever anything I can do for you, all you need to do is ask. I will always be here for you. No matter how big or small the problem, I don't care if I live in Timbuktu and you live in bumfucked Egypt. If you need me, I will come running. Nothing is too good for my Ronnie. I love you, Ron. Sometimes I feel as if my heart might burst with love for you. I know one day you will be a famous drag queen, and I will be able to say, I have seen her through some of the hardest parts of her life. We grew together, laughed, cried, and loved together. She will always be my Sasha, my Ronnie la Sirena, my beautiful mermaid, my everything. I love you. Kisses and hugs with little X's and O's. Love forever, Naranya, the dancing orange. That was a letter Aimee wrote to me nearly 20 years ago. I kept it all these years and I wanted to share it with you today. It kind of sums up the essence of our friendship and the love we had for one another. Now you might be wondering why Aimee signed the letter as Naranya, the dancing orange. Let me explain. As she stated in the letter, when I was 18, I had this grand dream that I was going to be a celebrated drag queen on the stage. And at the time, I was wearing women's clothing and makeup. Now I just wear bow ties and bunny ears. Eventually, I stopped wearing makeup and women's clothes, and I never became a drag queen. But that's not what's important. What is important is that Aimee believed in me, maybe even more than I believed in myself. She believed in me so much that she was going to become a drag queen too. Yes. And because her favorite color was orange, and because I liked the Spanish word for orange, naranja, which we actually mispronounced as Naranya, her drag name became Naranya, the dancing orange. Which is actually kind of funny because we were essentially calling her Orange, the dancing orange. But it sounded good at the time. I first became aware of Aimee when I was a sophomore in high school. We were about 16 years old. There was a girl who sat near me in one of my classes, and I remember she would come to class each day with these notes from Aimee, who was in her previous class. And while reading these notes, this girl would be in absolute hysterics. Naturally, I was very curious about what was so funny, and one day she let me read one of these notes. And to this day, I swear it was one of the funniest things I have ever read. It was more like a comedy monologue, to be honest. Looking back, I truly believe Aimee had the potential to be a comedian. Or if not, she definitely had the potential to be a comic writer. Because she had this incredible razor-sharp wit, and she just knew what was funny, you know? And you always laughed with her, you never laughed at her. Anyway, I don't remember everything this note said, but what I do remember is that she was kind of making fun of someone that neither of them liked. And I remember that she made some kind of a reference about shaving this person's pubic hair and making a wig out of it. Yeah. It was so hilariously inappropriate and so absurdly clever. At the time, it struck me as being one of the funniest things I had ever heard, and I'll never forget it. Right then and there, I decided I needed to know this person, and I immediately set out to make Aimee my friend. Not only did she become my friend, she became one of my best friends. More like family, really. Now at school, Aimee was often on, so to speak. She was funny, she was boisterous, she was a lot of fun to be around. And she also had this spunky, sort of tough attitude. She didn't take crap from anyone. She was very easy to like. But as I got to know her outside of school, I began to see another side of her, a side that was softer, perhaps, a side that was a little more vulnerable, a little more thoughtful. She was deeper than she really let on at school, and she was really quite perceptive. I remember we would have these long talks on the phone, and later, as our friendship developed, I'd come over to her house and we'd visit. And we just talked for hours and hours up in her room with the window open. No matter what time of the day or night, rain or shine, she always had that window open. It was those talks, I think, that really formed the basis of our friendship. I think that Aimee was looking for a deeper connection with someone, and I was certainly looking for that too. Now, you know, a good conversation with Aimee lasted several hours. I mean, there was no such thing as a half hour or even an hour-long discussion with Aimee. No, a good talk with Aimee lasted anywhere from 2 to 5 hours at least. But when you were together, just the two of you, she had a way of making you feel like you were the only person in the whole world that mattered. She was the kind of person who could tell you anything and make it sound like the most important thing you'd ever heard. In those hours-long conversations, she would really open up and share what felt like her most sacred thoughts. And you knew that you could also share your most sacred thoughts and feelings with her. As a friend, she was the perfect combination of silly and serious, embodying both the profound and the ridiculous. She was truly one of a kind. Now, sometimes she did like to talk more than she liked to listen, and after about the second or third hour, it could become difficult to listen to her with as much enthusiasm. I think that Aimee really lived in her head in a lot of ways. I mean, sometimes she'd tell me these stories that to this day, I don't know if they were true or not, and I just think to myself, is this girl for real or what? But most of the time, after each discussion, I'd walk away feeling as if she had just bared her entire soul to me. And it was those discussions, I think, that really bonded us together. We knew we could trust each other and that we could tell each other anything without any fear of judgment or ridicule. Speaking of judgment and ridicule, I was often teased in school for the way I talked, the way I walked, the clothes I wore, and on and on. One day after school, shortly after we first met, Aimee and I were sitting on the school bus having a conversation. All of a sudden, seemingly out of nowhere, she put her head forward and leaned in really close, looking at me with those big, beautiful eyes of hers. And she asked me very softly, very seriously, almost under her breath, she said, "Are you gay?" And even though I wasn't brave enough at the time to say it out loud. So I said no. But by asking me that question, I sensed that she knew that I was. And even more importantly, that she wasn't judging me for it. It was as though she actually saw me for me. She saw me for me. It was like she could see right inside of me. And by asking me that question, she actually empowered me with the knowledge that I didn't have to hide who I was. That despite what all those other bullies were saying and all the names they were calling me, it was okay. Because I had a friend in my corner who would support me and love me and accept me no matter what. A year later, when I was 17, I did find the strength to come out, and Aimee was one of the first, quite possibly the first, person I ever told. She was absolutely pivotal in my growth as an individual, and I will always be grateful to her for that. As liberating as it was to come out at age 17, it also meant getting kicked out of my parents' home. By the time I was 18 and a senior in high school, I found myself on the verge of being homeless. Aimee said, "Why don't you come live with me?" So I rented the spare bedroom from Phyllis, Aimee's mom, and I continued to live there for the rest of the year. It was so fun to get up and get ready and walk to school each day with my best friend. They say that living with your friends can either improve or destroy your friendship, but living together for us was a wonderful adventure, one of the great adventures of my life, a time I look back on with much fondness. I realize now how fortunate I am to have had that time with her. When it came time to graduate from high school, it was Aimee's mom who stood next to me as I got my photo taken before the ceremony. And it was my best friend, Aimee, who encouraged me to hold my head up high as I received my diploma. Now, if Bryan Adams had the summer of '69, Aimee and I had the summer of '97. It was a magical time for us, both as individuals and as friends. We were 18, we had very little responsibility, no bills to pay, each day promised its own sense of adventure, there was fun around every corner, and the future was wide open. Anything was possible. We seemed to have spent our days in a colorful kaleidoscope of laughter, fun, and youthfulness. Unfortunately, I'm actually really bad at remembering specific stories or experiences. What I remember most is the essence or the feeling of that time in my life, which only makes me miss Aimee more because I kind of relied on her to remember things for me, you know? One night, some time ago, we were reminiscing about the old days, and she was telling me these stories, and I swear she could remember every detail. And she was actually incredulous that I couldn't remember. She said, "You don't remember that?" But I loved hearing her memories. She'd tell me something, and I'd be like, "I can't believe I did that." Or, "Yeah, that sounds like something you would do." Mostly, I remember silly little things. Like one night we had the munchies. And Aimee decided she was gonna fix us something to eat. So we went downstairs and she made this concoction of top ramen and scrambled eggs. Yes. With some vegetables and the perfect blend of seasoning and spices. She called it Egg Catastrophe. I have to tell you, it was one of the best meals I ever ate. She made a big pot of that stuff and we ate it all. And for the longest time after that, she tried to recreate it, but she could never get it to taste quite as good as she did that first time around. I think that's what makes it so memorable for me. Another random memory, and this is one of my favorites, is that I used to have this really bad habit of saying right on. Like you could tell me anything at all, and I'd go, right on. Well, shortly after I started saying that, Aimee would say, in her perkiest voice, she'd go, left leg. So imagine, right on, left leg, right on, left leg. Yeah. It used to crack me up. And to this day, when I hear someone say right on, I always say left leg. Mostly, I recall the sound of Aimee's laughter. I can hear it right now. I can see the expression on her face. She was so expressive, and I can hear her laughing, just as if she were standing right next to me. There's no possible way I could ever put my friendship with Aimee and all the things she meant to me into words. I loved her very much. I do love her very much. And as I said before, she was family to me, absolutely. But as we got older, and as life took us in different directions, we kind of fell out of touch. We never stopped loving each other, but the phone calls and the visits became less frequent, especially after I moved to California 9 years ago. And that is something I will always regret. Buddha says, the trouble is you think you have time. And that was definitely the trouble with me. I thought I had more time. I thought there would be time to see Aimee on another visit at some future date. I was caught up in being busy with my own life. I took it for granted that she would always be there. But I never stopped loving her, thinking of her, holding her close to my heart. We did have Facebook, so we weren't entirely out of touch, and I'm very grateful for the wonderful little comments she would leave me from time to time. And I know that she loved me too, that she always held me close to her heart. Some of you here today have consoled me with those sentiments, but mostly it's just something that I know to be true, that I feel in my heart. I was feeling really guilty for a while because I felt like I should have been a better friend. I should have reached out while I was in town visiting. I should have made more of an effort. I wish I could have just one more day with her. To tell her how much she meant to me, to give her a hug, to laugh with her just one more time. But feeling guilty isn't going to resolve anything. I was speaking with a friend recently, and she said something that was very profound. She said that by focusing on my guilt, it becomes about me. It's not about Aimee anymore, it's about me. And that's not fair for either of us. So I choose to release that guilt and focus instead on the love that we shared and the ways that she touched my life. Because that is what is really important, and that is the only thing that truly sustains me when I'm missing her, and I miss her terribly. I've heard it said that people come into our lives for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. That life is a journey, a path we must walk. Sometimes we walk alone, and other times our paths converge with another. And during those times, we walk with fellow travelers, companions on the road. Though Aimee wasn't necessarily on my path for a lifetime, and though we eventually came to a fork in the road and our paths went separate directions, the reasons that we walked together and the seasons that we shared left an indelible mark on my life. And I am a better person because of it, because of our time together, and because of the deep bonds of friendship and love that we shared. It's my belief that we are all truly spiritual beings having a human experience, and that death is only a transformation of the flesh into the spirit. I don't equate death with stopping. I believe that the path of life goes on even after we leave our bodies to an even more incredible adventure with things that we can only begin to imagine. And with that belief, I have absolute faith that our paths will converge again, and that one day we will journey together in spirit. In 1998, when Sonny Bono passed away, Cher said that when she was young, there was a section in the Reader's Digest called "The Most Unforgettable Character I've Ever Met." The most unforgettable character I've ever met. And I echo her sentiments when I say that no matter how long I live or who I meet in my life, that person will always be Aimee for me. Finally, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that Aimee's presence, her spirit, is here with us today, and I'm sure that she is loving every moment of this. So, Aimee, I just want to say to you, thank you for the gift of your friendship. Thank you for all the joy that you brought me and the ways that you changed my life. I love you, and I'll see you on the other side.
Well, I can't imagine that there could be anything more to say that would beat that. But you're certainly, anybody who might want to come up and say a word or two is certainly welcome to.